this is the end of our 2-week trip around the northern tip of Sulawesi, Manado area. For these 2 weeks we had Mark, our patron, on board, and it was awesome to have him along. We've been a bit lonely, just the three of us. No, not really, but Mark is a great guy and he's a great addition to the crew. Actually helped us out, and we hope he had a great time as well. So I'll do a bit of a look back. We started off in Manado, where we picked Mark up. We had a great sail around to Lembe Straits, to Bitung area, where we anchored up at D Lagoon for a couple of days and went snorkeling in the it's called muck diving there. It's not where your normal sort of clear water blue stuff is, but it was pretty cool. A lot of really special animals and coral in there. We went and checked out the big fishing harbour there as well. That was really interesting. I mean, it's not a pristine, beautiful white beach sort of area, and it's sort of dirty and sinking ships and all that, but it has its own charm. It's pretty cool to check out. From there we went north 40 or 50 miles, great downwind run, had a really good sail. It was cool to show Mark the performance of this cat as you don't really feel it. We're just cruising along at 10 knots and it feels like you're doing 3 or 4, but we covered those miles pretty quick. Found a cool little anchorage up there, played with the local kids a little bit, went for a stroll through the village. And then the highlight of the trip, I guess, for all of us was the visit to Ruang, the volcano. As you can see here, the footage is pretty crazy. 800 people got evacuated a few months ago. None have been able to return. All of the housing and infrastructure, roads, everything is just destroyed, as you can see. Pretty chaotic, but impressive to see the power of nature for us, that's for sure. We felt like we were sort of intruding. Well, we felt, we didn't go and walk around and poke around in the villages, but the drone shots show you pretty much a good view of it. So 3 videos we did about these areas. Go back and check them all out if you want to see this whole story. And then it was a 70-mile, basically a motor, back down to Bunaken, where we are now. And so the rest of the video I'll be showing you this amazing place. It's one of the oldest marine parks in Indonesia. We haven't seen a great deal of amazing underwater life this year. Sulawesi, well, the fishermen are pretty efficient there. Not a lot left underwater. A lot of bombing still going on. So it was real cool to see this area that's been preserved. And as you'll see in the shots, a lot of life here. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the video. So where Trade Runner is sitting right now in this shot, it's 100 meters deep. Or for you Americans, it's about 42 medium-sized African elephants standing on top of each other and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Luckily, someone put a mooring buoy here. Must have a very long rope and a very big block on the bottom. They put it there for cruisers like us, and it was amazing. Otherwise, we couldn't experience this beautiful island. As you can see in the background, there's some little sort of lagoons, and that's where the resorts and dive operations keep their little dive boats, but it's too shallow for us, and anyway, they're taking up all the space.
Every day, dive boats are taking guests in the different diving spots, and we were memorizing where they were going. Bunaken is a well-known island for the divers, as it is one of the oldest national parks of Indonesia, so it was time for us to dive and check it out. Being established in 1991, the marine conservation during a bit more than 30 years is definitely making the underwater life here incredibly good. Especially for us, after the lifeless anchorage we came across along the coast of Sulawesi because of the bad habits of blast fishing and coral mining. We dived every day twice, staying around an hour in the water each time, and we soon discovered that even if there are some dive spots, basically everywhere you can jump in the water along the reef is a good spot. That was the first time, as parents, that we could really enjoy to go swimming. Being 3 aboard made it more easy and allowed Vernon and I to take turns to go snorkeling. One of us could go with Mark and the other taking care of little Eli aboard. We never seen that many turtles in one place in Indonesia, and they were really not shy. Groups of scuba divers are diving really deep in some areas, and we were just able to notice their presence by the bubbles coming up from under us, making some really nice ambience to film the turtles and merman Mark. The specificity of the reef here is that they drop off in a vertical cliff. Swimming along the wall can really give the feeling of vertigo. The main species we saw are angelfish and butterfly fish of different sorts, blue triggerfish, and without being an expert of recognizing species of turtle, I would say that they were mainly hawksbill and green turtles, but you can correct me if I am wrong. When we were not in the water, we enjoyed the beach bars eating fried bananas and drinking green coconuts and beers. Mark practices Bahasa with the local.
Hello, people Bunaken.
Bunaken.
Bunaken, ya, people Bunaken.
Pisang goreng.
Pisang goreng, kelapa muda.
Nama
Ibu namanya Vivi. Junior.
Junior.
This Fanny.
Fanny.
Ya.
Hey. Nama saya Mark.
Oh, okay.
Ibu. Hello. The mooring buoy that we had at Bunaken, the loose rules are you keep it for 24 hours, and if another boat comes the next day, well, you vacate it and they take it over. Well, we haven't seen another boat in weeks, so there was not that problem. The only thing deciding our time limits were the fact that Mark had to leave, had to get to the airport, fly back to Australia, the real world, the job, all those sorts of things. But I think him and us both, we could have stayed there easily another week, but 4 days, we felt pretty lucky. Amazing weather the whole time. On the plus side, there was some wind, so we got to pull up the rags and have a good sail out of there. Now, we've been sailing around these Indonesian islands for quite a while now, so we've sort of got a handle on them, but there's a bit to learn, there's a bit to experience on these sorts of things with the sailing conditions. This Volcano Island, for example, the cone, the wind really changes all the time around this, so you might be going upwind and then you're tacking. Then as you get a mile further down, the wind comes around the back of it and then you're loosening your sails and jibing, and then you might have 3 knots of currents against you, and halfway through it might be 3 knots of currents with you, or 6 knots. It's sometimes tricky.
Bit of a wet spot there.
These flat islands on our starboard side, well, I prefer them a little bit more. They're not quite as beautiful to look at, but quite often you'll get wind coming over them, but absolutely calm water on the other side of them. It's sort of champagne sailing, if you will. A bit like Fraser Island in Australia, you often get amazing sailing in calm water, and you can really test out the top speed of your boat because you're not hitting any wave or chop. Always fun when you got the sails up. If you have the motors off, well, that's why we do this really, isn't it? Nice and quiet, some spray over the bows, off you go. Once we got up north of the islands, the wind actually just died out nearly completely. Anyway, we thought we'd try and sail it out, so we hoisted the screecher. I'd had that away for our upwind leg back. The big screecher in front of the jib actually gives quite a lot of turbulent air when you're going upwind, so we sort of dropped that on longer legs. But it was needed today. Pulled it up and then set that, and we were able to sail a bit longer before we had to start the engines up. But it was only a couple more miles into our spot for the evening. Okay, so we've been 2 weeks on the boat with us up here in the north of Sulawesi.
Yeah.
How was how have you found it?
Fantastic, absolutely life affirming experience.
Yeah.
I've taken up, in true to form, I've taken a whole bunch of notes. So I might actually read from these notes.
All right.
I've called it Stuff I Learned. So learning sailing by doing, true to form. So there's a bunch of sailing stuff. So sailing techniques, including things that are unique to a cat. Anchoring technique in deep water and complex anchorages. So like anchoring fore and aft. I've never done that before. And some of the anchorages here are just crazy deep, like 20, 30 metres, insane. Weather prediction and planning, how to, and not just local weather, but also macro weather. So looking at trade winds and how to use the trade winds for long-term cruising. Route planning, provisioning and galley skills. Up until this week, I'd never ever washed dishes with salt water, so that was an adventure, and it actually worked out really well. Yacht purchasing. Specification of yachts appropriate to my skills and aspirations, pros and cons of different yacht designs, and then there was a bunch of non-sailing stuff, which I think is just like sugar on cream on the topping, or whatever you want to call it.
Icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake. That's what I was after.
Cherry on the top.
it's the bintang.
Beer in the belly. All of those.
So the non-sailing specific, dealing with locals and respecting local customs, freediving technique. So at the start of this trip, I reckon I was maybe 15 seconds max. But by the end of it, I was cruising around for at least double that, quite comfortably.
Easy. We always say like 45 seconds.
Yeah, it was, and chill, just
chilling.
Really enjoying it. And you'll probably see that in some of the footage. Photography, so looking at composition and how to frame stuff, and looking at the different sort of things that you guys find interesting. Some of the local dishes in Indonesia. I've got I am rika, which is really spicy. Love it. Yeah, rica. That's the one. That's. I'm looking forward to that. Pisang goreng, a bunch of other crazy Indo things, and sope.
Sope. We tested them out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the local moonshine.
Oh, holy smokes!
I kept them. I taught them, showed them that and the effects the next morning.
Yeah. I was speaking fluent Indonesian at the end of that.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was anyway. I was a good singer and I was better looking. So really, I came into this trip wanting to experience the realities of cruising life. I wanted to know whether or not this, even though it's only 2 weeks, but I really wanted to know whether or not this is the sort of thing that I could do long term, because it's something I've always dreamed of doing. I've sort of dipped my toe in the water with my little 25 footer, and there is absolutely no doubt, no question at all in my mind that this is exactly the life I want to be living. Initially it'll just be up the east coast of Australia for a season or two, and then I'll push north into Indo and West Papua and Indo, and then onwards from there. But absolutely life affirming experience, one I'll never forget. Thank you so much, Vernon, Marie, Eli.
High five.
Absolutely rip a couple of weeks.
It's been really cool, and it's good to hear that, that you've written it down, but obviously that's memorable to you. And like when you're talking about the photography and composition, it's not like we had a course planned and we're going to teach him. He's just like, we're just doing stuff day to day basically, and he's picking up and he's learning by watching and learning by doing himself, and that's the spirit of it. We're not putting on a day to day. Today we're doing freediving. Today we're doing photography techniques, but we just do this every day, and he's sort of like spotted what we're doing and garnered some knowledge and gathered some tips and got to try it out. And it was cool to see with the freediving, for example, I could just notice him. He'd just go down and just cruise and follow a turtle and just cruise along like for double as long the next day, and then the next day again. And with the sailing, I mean, he's obviously not a rookie, and you can see that, and he's done a lot of flying in his life, for example, planes and hang gliders and that, and a lot of it's transferable, especially just the idea of lift and all that sort of thing. So he, I would say he picked up some stuff, but he knew a lot of that stuff. But just the little stuff like anchoring and looking at route planning and how the winds and currents work and all that, it's just easier if you're doing it every day, right?
Yeah,
like
100%.
the idea and watching videos and that's all cool, but just doing it every day, it's normal. It's not, you're doing it bite sized, so it's not this big scary thing. You're just doing, it's just a normal day's sailing for us. We change anchorages nearly every day. So it was awesome. Really cool to have you aboard.
Absolutely.
Good to get to know you more, and it was an absolute pleasure for us. And I hope you guys. We made 3 videos in the 2 weeks that he's on board, and they're all rippers, I guess, all really different than the
Ruang.
others.
Oh my god.
And Ruang was a highlight, the Volcano.
epic.
That'll be the video before this one. And absolute ripper. And we hope there's other, patrons in the works that'll follow on. Like this is money well spent in a way, right?
100%.
You're just sort of investing in advance, but in the end
yeah.
you get a couple of weeks out here, and I hope that anyway.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true.
Yeah, and we appreciate your support and all of your patron support, obviously, and some obviously can't afford to be in the higher. What's it called?
Tiers.
The tiers, sorry.
Yeah,
but we thank
icing
you.
on the cake will help with the tiers.
But we thank you all very, very much, and I wish we could have you, all of the patrons on board at some stage. Obviously, it's not quite possible, but it is cool for us to have different people on board and watch people's progression and see what they get back. And everyone brings us something too, Like he bought us a thermostat that didn't work. But he bought Marie some aperitif, richa.
Couple of cheeses. Yeah.
Oh, a couple of cheeses, they were
fresh
good. He
cheeses.
bought us some camembert and some brie. That was very good. And some fans.
Yeah. Oh, you bought the fans.
I paid for the
I was
fans,
the
but
trafficker.
he trafficked them in. Anyway, cool.